Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. My name is Eleonora, I'm a registered migration agent in Perth and the agency I manage is Green Wings Migration. Before we discuss the topic of today's video, which is going to be the so much sought after and waited for changes on the 482 visa, I would like to take a few seconds to thank everyone who's watching my videos. I really appreciate your time. I really hope that you are enjoying them. The feedback is extremely positive, so it looks like the information we are sharing with you guys is something that you were needing and it's something that you're looking for. I just have a little question for you. If you like this channel, if you like the videos, if you like the topics that we speak about, please subscribe to it. So this allows us to share the channel with as many people as possible who might be interested, and it gives us the opportunity to keep producing quality content. Now, let's go into our video for today. So we waited a few days before recording this video. The reason being, I really wanted to have a chance to read legislation before producing this content. I know that the information has been going around for a while. I know that many of my colleagues decided to jump on board and provide you with a list of what was being discussed. But I really like to see with my eyes anything and read everything and understand everything before sharing it with you. So I'm sure that I don't give you conflicting information. And I do apologize in advance if today's video is probably not going to be up to standards, or at least the standard that I normally like. Legislation is new. I've read it. I've compared it to the old versions of it. And definitely there are some gray areas. Now, I'm not the only one who doesn't understand these gray areas. I had a chance to contact some colleagues outside my office. They all shared the same understanding, or I should say, the same misunderstanding, okay? We all have the impression that this legislation, despite being in the pipeline for so many months since last April, has been a little bit rushed. The updates on IMI account and on PAM, which is a system that we agents use, have not been completed. So please bear with us while we keep asking questions to the department. We keep putting questions to the Migration Institute of Australia as well, which are our representatives, in order to contact the department and ask those questions on our behalf. So for today, what I'm going to do is essentially presenting you the new visa, compare it to the old version, telling you what we know so far, telling you how this new visa impacts or may not impact the transition to permanent residency for some of you. And then I'm going to list some questions that I as an agent have, which I suppose if I have them, surely enough, you have them as well. But I do really invite you to send us all your questions so we can compile a PDF document. And as we receive answers to these questions, we send them out through our newsletter and we share them to our social media channels. So I hope that the majority of you will receive eventually the answers they are looking for. Biggest changes, obviously, the name itself. I mean, this is just a little change, but the 482 TSS Visa is now the 482 SID Visa, where, as we know, SID stands for Skills in Demand. With changing the name, also the occupation list that we refer to when we had to nominate a person for a 482 nomination, a 482 visa, has changed. So before we had three different lists. One was the short-term skill list, one was the medium and long-term skill list, and one was the regional skill list. Occupations on the regional skill list would behave as if they were long-term skill occupations. Now we have the core skill list. Then we have some occupations that are list free but can receive a 482 SID visa anyway. And then we have labor agreement list. So anything that cannot belong to the core skill list and the professional skill list then can be included in the labor agreement stream. So we had 3 streams before, we had 3 streams now, but only one list essentially. So that's the biggest change. On this list we have many occupations, 400 something occupations. Obviously we don't have all occupations that were present on the previous list. Some have been excluded. We will discuss about them in a little bit. People who are nominated for a core skill list 482 SID Visa are subject to the current minimum threshold salary of $73,150 plus superannuation, and this amount is going to be indexed every year. So every 1st of July, we can expect the minimum salary threshold to go up. If you work in an occupation that does not belong to the core skill list, and it's normally a professional occupation, and you get paid more than $135,000 a year plus superannuation, then you will belong to the specialist skills stream. And you could really perform any occupation that you would like, beside being a tradesperson, a laborer, unskilled skill level 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. And finally, the labor agreement skill list. Well, labor agreement gives a lot of flexibility to employers and employees alike. A labor agreement is a private negotiation that occurs between the employer and the Department of Home Affairs when the employer has the need to sponsor certain people whose occupation is not featured in any other migration scheme that's already in existence. So if you think about this, our cafe restaurant managers, they can be somewhat relieved. It's not the end of the world for them. It's certainly going to be a little bit more complicated than before, but it's still doable. You still have an option for a visa. I've listed some other differences between the two versions of the 482 visa. Second difference I highlighted is the cost. So obviously we had two main kind of occupations before. If an occupation was on the short-term skill list, it would have been approved for up to 2 years, and it would have costed $1,495. And then if you had the long-term occupation or the regional occupation, you would have gotten a visa for 4 years and paid $3,115. Now they have made one and the same. Now you get a visa that can be approved for up to 4 years. That depends for how long your employer nominates you for, and you always pay $3,115. So no more differences in the visa application charges. Compulsory skills assessment didn't change. So if you were working in an occupation coming from a certain country that required compulsory skills assessment before, you are very much sure that you still need to obtain a compulsory skills assessment for the SID visa. The way to obtain the skills assessment didn't change. So we're still dealing with a TRA skills assessment or an OSAP skills assessment when TRA delegated one of the other providers like VetAssess, for example. And project or program administrator still subject to compulsory skills assessment for 482 SID visa. Something that changed that I noticed, this is just a minor change, is about the insurance. You might remember that under the old 482, you must apply and receive private health insurance cover as a visa condition, so after the visa was approved. Now, already in the visa processing, you need to give evidence of this criterion, but that's easy. Just apply for insurance and you get a letter from the insurance provider of your choice, and this letter is submitted to the department alongside your visa application. And one of the most weighted change that unfortunately is going to leave so many people upset is the change about the experience. So under the old visa rules, a person needed to meet two different criteria. One was having the qualifications and skills according to the ANSCO code. And the second was to show that the person had 2 years of work experience in the role. Since the talk about the new 482 visa started, it seemed like only 1 year of experience was required to get the visa approved. That's not exactly how it actually is. So you still need to show qualifications and skills as per the ANSCO. And then, yes, instead of 2 years of experience, you can show only 1 year of recent experience. What does this mean? This means that, let's say you are a chef, just to make a very common example, and you never worked in a kitchen, but you started to work in a kitchen in Australia, and through working holiday visas and student visas and whatnot, you came up with a little profile as a chef, let's say a chef de partie, so entry level, okay? It's not sufficient to have 1 year of experience in the role to get the visa. You still need to show that you have either dequalification, which would be a diploma in hospitality management, or at least 3 years of experience that would substitute a qualification that you didn't study for. So this is a big change, a big non-change, so something that remains exactly like before. Don't think that just because you work 1 year in a certain occupation, you can get sponsored. You still need to have a skill profile, and the skill profile is based on either the qualification that you obtain through study, or the experience, the years of experience that you work in the occupation that allow you to be considered a skilled person despite the fact of not having the qualification through study, okay? So this has to be very clear. If you want to apply for a 482 visa, you cannot only have 1 year of experience in the job. You must be a skilled person nonetheless. And then, yes, they clarified a little bit how these 12 months of experience can be calculated. So first of all, it has to be accrued in the 5 years before the application is lodged. So on the day that we lodge, you must have the 12 months of experience. This can be a combination of full-time, part-time, and casual, as long as on a pro rata basis, all together, you have 12 months of full-time. Another example, let's say that for 3 years, you worked on a part-time basis. 3 years on a part-time basis, regular part-time, that would be at least 20 hours per week, would equate to 1.5 years of full-time experience. And when it comes to casual experience, the casual contract, as the contract where you and the employer can resign from this agreement you have at any point without any penalty, is not as important. So it has to be casual contract, but regular hours, regular 20 hours, regular 38 hours, whatever, but a regular amount of hours under a casual contract of employment. So that way we can pro rata your experience and verify that you indeed have the 12 months in the last 5. English, also little change about English. If you remember before in the short term, you had that sort of functional English, and then the vocational English applied to the long, medium and long stream of the visa. Now it's vocational for everyone. So if IELTS needs to be 5 in each component of the test, and if PTE needs to be 36 in each component of the test. Then the other thing is about transitioning to 186 TRT. So here it didn't change much, it stayed pretty much the same. I guess the main thing is you don't have to have been working 2 years for the same employer. So as long as you've been working 2 years in the 3 years before your application for TRT is lodged, in the occupation you've been nominated for, and while holding an eligible visa, so a 457 or 482, 482, both versions of it, TSS and SID Visa, you can transition to 186 TRT. Bear in mind, this also applies to those people whose occupation was removed from the current version of the core skill list. So again, just to make an example that's valid for everyone, if you are a cafe and restaurant manager and you obtain a 482 visa, as long as you stick with your employer though, because you're not able to transition to another sponsor anymore. So stay with your original sponsor, don't take any unpaid leave, get to the point where you have 2 years, 104 weeks of paid experience, then you can apply for your 186 TRT, regardless of the fact that your occupation has been removed from the core skills occupation list. This is because the core occupation list only applies to 482 visas and 186 direct entry. It doesn't apply to 186 TRT, so still doable. Nothing changed as far as age exemptions and English exemption and all that kind of stuff. Now, the questions I have, which I hope I will have some answers for pretty soon, that depends on the department. So obviously, there are the caveats that still apply to either 482 or 186 direct entry nominations. Caveats are normally conditions that prevents certain people to be sponsored in a certain occupation. So if condition A apply, then that person cannot be sponsored under that occupation. And some of them create confusion. So it looks like, for example, that if you are a chef coming from a country where an international training obligation applies, you could be sponsored, but you couldn't be sponsored if you're a chef from another country. But at the same time, this seems to be applying to chefs and it doesn't apply to cooks. So it doesn't really make much sense. We're waiting for some clarity on that. Then, existing visa holders who left their business because, in July the condition changed, so now you are given up to 6 months to find a new sponsor, and then in the meantime their occupation has been removed from the list. What do these people do? Big question mark, because obviously they cannot be taken over by a new sponsor for a 482 visa. They could potentially be taken over with a labor agreement, but that would require them not only to transfer the visa, but also to reapply for the visa itself because it's under a different stream. And then if they are working in an area that's considered regional, then potentially they could do a 494 sponsorship. But then again, Sydney, Melbourne excluded. And also skills assessment, it's compulsory for 494. Does this person have all the right criteria to get a skills assessment approved and whatnot? ANSCO and OSCA, this is another thing. So together with producing a new list of skilled occupations, a new version of the ANSCO code has been produced and it's called OSCA. In OSCA, we have basically every occupation that was in ANSCO, plus additional emerging occupations that became, necessary because we are living in 2024, and also some reorganization of the existing occupations. So, for example, some specializations became actual occupations, self-standing. Some occupations were divided in different groups. So, for example, chefs under the OSCA, you have the executive and head chef and sous chef on one side, and you have the other chefs like chef de partie, etc. on another code. And the codes sometimes are different. So for example, a person who was a gardener under the ANSCO is still a gardener under the OSCA, but the occupation code is different. So how does this play out with legislation changes? Still big question mark. We don't know yet. It seems like the department is still referring to ANSCO purely in terms of, regulations and schedules and stuff. But it would be really interesting to see what's going to happen. And then, yes, something that is very technical, but obviously you would imagine we have regulations in place. It's not just what's written on the department's website that we as agents we refer to. And one of these regulations, which is affecting 482 nominations, is Regulation 2.72. Well, reading this morning, so after all the changes were implementing the Regulation 2.72, we cannot avoid to see that it still refers to TSS visas. They didn't update it, they didn't change it to SID Visa. So this creates a lot of confusion for us that, we approach the thing from a more technical perspective. But that's it for today. So again, I know it's not what you were expecting. This is not what I was expecting either, trust me. Me and my colleague, we are doing our best to try to give you the answers that you're looking for and we are looking for as well. If you are our client, please be patient. Know that we are really working hard to find the best fitting solution for your needs. Please understand that we are trying to get our head around something that's completely new because we don't want to give you either false hope or wrong advice. Okay, so bear with us, we'll do our best, and thank you so much for following today.